Is it something that is powerful, or is it something that is fundamentally restrictive? How does it relate to living well in the messiness and the limits and the struggles and the opportunities of life? I'm going to start a series of blogs really exploring what faith is for me. And this is the introduction. And I'm going to say two things. One is that faith is shared. Faith is something that we all have in us, I believe. But that it's not constrained to just a religious sphere. It's not just for the people that go to church or whatever. It is actually a really important part of all of us. And so the second thing I'm going to say is that faith is powerful when it's approached with congruence and authenticity. And that's what I'm going to try to do in these blogs, is not tell you what's correct, not tell you how you should be, but express as honestly as I can why faith is so precious to me. I hope you'll find something we share. I hope you'll find something that inspires you in your journey of faith and in your journey of living in the messiness of life. So here goes. My faith is the part of me I treasure most. It is life-giving, but is also the part of me that is most easily drowned out by all the other things that make up my day-to-day existence. But please don't misunderstand me. You see, some of you may now be thinking, oh no, here's another religious nut trying to tell me how I should think, live, or worse, tell me that I'm going to hell. I'm not. I won't. By faith, I don't mean beliefs, theology, or a moral code. You see, the other night I wanted to walk up a hill by my house to get a better view of the night sky. As I started, I realized just how dark it was, and I began to worry. Will it be muddy? Will I slip or trip? Am I going to be safe? I entered a way of being as I walked. Fear. This way of being, this fear, was shutting me off to the joy I could have had walking up that hill. I turned back and settled for a better lit, much less joyful route through the housing estate. By faith, I mean a way of walking through life that doesn't turn back when confronted by uncertainty, by darkness, mud, and risk. A way of being that is the opposite of fear, a way of life that opens us up rather than shuts us down. You could call it a mode of the heart that we can enter and leave, or hover in the doorway of. And here in these blogs, I hope to describe a vital part of human experience that is not often acknowledged, but rejected in favour of more palatable, popular, or profitable ways of being. Faith, you see, is subversive. For others of you, I fear you may expect more from this than I feel able to give. I don't aim here to be Christian or religious, although I may touch on the links for good and bad between religion and faith, and my own deeply cherished and deeply questioned Christianity. I don't aim to show how my Christianity meets the questions, conflicts, and suffering of existence and leads us into some more whole life. For now, I avoid this, fearing that meeting becomes simple answers and leading becomes beating. I also don't aim here to say the right things. Faith for me is a matter of the soul. Writing about it is to enter the world of authenticity, presence, and congruence. concepts of rightness and propriety, I have found, force the soul into retreat, and our souls have already known enough shame. So in these words, I hope you find a call to reconnect with what I believe is the heartbeat of your religion. It's not your theology. It's not being correct. It's not increasing in numbers, converting others, being part of things. It's faith. And I have to say, I've questioned whether to write these blogs. What will people reading or listening think? You might say this approaches the question of whether I'm a Christian counsellor or a counsellor who happens to be Christian. And my answer is yes and no. You see, I prefer to be in the in-between space that our culture and religions dislike. We like to label, we like to categorize, we like our prejudices and stereotypes to define ourselves by what we're not or what we are. This way of thinking is easy and tells us what to expect. It creates a mirage of control and understanding of our existence. And I've lived a lot of my life trying to be safely, unthreateningly, and happily part of two fundamentally incompatible groups: the dominant secular culture and the Christian subculture. And in so doing, I've cut off or suffocated part of myself that were not acceptable to one or the other. Parts of myself that I now see were precious, the essence of what makes me me. You see, the soul doesn't sit happily and safely within our categories. It's not made to conform, and that's its beauty. So rather than keep up the self-amputation, I'm going to strive to be congruent, to live outwardly in a way that mirrors what goes on internally, to say and do what I believe most needs to be said and done, rather than what I think others expect me to. I know that when I encounter people who live like this, I find people that I can trust. They don't have a hidden agenda. They don't need to try and manipulate me. So some may write me off as a heretic, others a religious nutcase, others as someone who just can't make up his mind. That's okay. I'm not doing it for them. I'm walking this journey into the dark in faith that by seeking to be congruent, even if it means being challenging, difficult, and perhaps a little shocking, I can have an impact for good, and that you might find me trustworthy. But even more, that I'll find myself trustworthy. Thanks for joining me, and join me next week for the next part in this series.